Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here with me tonight. My name is Andrea Pracht, and I am with my Kitchen Clatter, which is my small business that I get to go around and teach classes like this. Tonight, we are going to be making a springtime chopped salad with salmon as the topping. And what I'm going to go ahead and do tonight is give you a brief introduction to myself so you kind of know what I'm about and who I am. And then we are going to get right into the making of the salad. The salad is super simple. It's themed around spring and using produce that should be coming up in your garden or coming in at the farmer's market, at the grocery stores, as fresh as possible. Hopefully you have the recipe in front of you that the library provided to you and you can follow along. I am also posting this recipe on my website at mykitchenclatter.com. So if you lose the paper copy, just try to remember my name or my kitchen clatter, and you should be able to find a copy of the recipe in the future. What we're going, in terms of introducing myself, my name is Andrea, and I do these sorts of classes all around the Chicagoland area. I've been teaching classes since 2008. I started with bread baking classes and have expanded into all sorts of things. My goal is with these teachings is to try to help people find ways of making things at home that normally you might purchase. So helping you to reduce processed foods, lower your costs, and hopefully increase your health factor of your foods. I feel like when we know where things come from, we can enjoy them a little bit better. So with this recipe tonight, it's a chopped salad and it's pretty simple. And that's the goal here in the spring so that we can, just have time for all the things we want to do outside and around. What we're going to do though is make the salad dressing ourselves. And I'm giving you a recipe for a very basic vinaigrette. And we'll talk about different ways that you can fine tune this vinaigrette to make it into your own flavors. But I'm giving you a starting point, and this is how I personally like it. So that's what we're going to do with it. So the first step in the recipe is to basically get your salmon ready and to get your asparagus ready. It is still early enough right now for me when I'm recording this to have the asparagus. It is not growing in my garden yet, but it looks very nice in the grocery store. So try to find, when you're looking for asparagus, if you're not familiar with asparagus, try to find ones that are nice and green, usually a little bit thinner is how I like them. And all those little triangles on the sides, they should be tight up close to the stem. Once they start spreading, especially at the top, the asparagus is starting to go to flower, and it means it's a little bit older. So you want nice tight tops on your asparagus when you're looking for it. We're going to cook the asparagus along with the salmon tonight. But if you have very fresh asparagus, if you're lucky enough to have some growing in your garden, you can just pick it straight from the garden, and you do not need to cook it with the salmon. So that's something that you can figure out on your own if you want it to be raw in the salad or a little bit roasted. What I'm doing with the asparagus is I'm taking the spears and I'm snapping the ends of them off. So each one of your spears will bend naturally at a point, and you want to just take that end and throw it into the compost. Those ends are good if you wanted to make soup with them, or if you make vegetable stock, you can use them for that. But they're a little bit tough. They're not your most tender part of the asparagus. So usually when I'm doing the asparagus roasted like this, I toss the ends or use them for another use, but I don't eat them with the roasting. So all the ends are off of the bottoms of the asparagus. I've washed it ahead of time. What I would do at this point is take a tiny bit of olive oil, maybe about a tablespoon or two, pour it on top of that asparagus, and then just give it a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper on the tops of it. And then use your hands to toss that around in the oil so that it gets nice and coated. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the salmon, and I am going to also coat it with a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. We are going to flake the salmon when it is done cooking. So I don't do much else with it. I feel like a good slice of salmon should have a lot of good flavor with it and not need much else to it. If you want, you can take a little bit of Cajun seasoning or something like a lemon pepper seasoning, and use that and sprinkle that on too at this time. I'm just leaving it plain tonight. That's how I feel like it's best. So I'm just going to slide this into the oven. The oven has a pan in it because that's sometimes where we store things. And I'm going to slide that into the oven, and I'm going to set the timer for about 10 minutes. I am looking for my asparagus to be fork tender or a little bit crisper. So it's very personal preference. I don't personally like my asparagus if you hold it like this and it flops down. That to me means that it's been a little bit overcooked. So I'm hoping 10 minutes is about right. It's at 400 degrees in the oven. We'll check it at 10, see where it's at. I may pull the asparagus off before the salmon is done. We'll just kind of give it a check when we get there. And so while that is cooking, we will go ahead and mix up the salad dressing. And what I'm going to do is, what you can do is save yourself getting another bowl dirty. You can use the same bowl that you tossed the asparagus in. It already has a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper in it. That's all ingredients that are in our salad dressing. So I'm going to switch cameras here so that you can see what is going on with the salad dressing. And I'll do that in just a second. I have a small whisk. So we're going to whisk the olive oil and the vinegar together, along with a little bit of honey and a little bit of Dijon mustard. So I have about a teaspoon of Dijon, a teaspoon of honey. I've got 6 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I am using balsamic vinegar, but you can use whatever vinegar that you have around the house. The same goes for the olive oil. So whatever you like, you can play with the flavors, the vinegars especially, because this dressing has strawberries in it. I like the balsamic. There are flavored vinegars out there that can be really lovely and can give your vinaigrettes some different character. You can also leave the honey and the Dijon out of the dressing and just do vinegar and olive oil and keep it super simple. What we're doing here when we're making our own dressing is we're looking for a ratio of about 3 to 1. So 3 tablespoons of your oil to 1 tablespoon of your vinegar. So then you just kind of play with the flavors and all of that to kind of figure out how you like it. So I am going to switch the camera so you can see the inside of my bowl here. I think one of the things that where we can cut costs in our shopping, and also it's very easy to do, and it also really can increase our healthiness in our household, is to make our own vinaigrettes. So I did this exactly the opposite of how I wrote it out in the recipe. So the recipe says to start with the vinegar in the bowl, and then whisk in your Dijon and your honey. I am going to continue with it as I've done it, and I'll tell you how the recipe tells you to do it. It says to start with your vinegar in the bowl, whisk in your Dijon, your honey. I have a little bit of shallot here, which you can use or not use depending on your preference. And then the recipe says to go ahead and slowly whisk in your olive oil. And so if you do that, the idea is that your vinaigrette will emulsify and combine better. The reason I did it the way I did it is because that's how I normally do it here. I usually do just dump everything together, and it turns out, you can see, it turns out just fine. So this term emulsifying means to combine the olive oil and the vinegar so that they stick together, basically, and they ideally wouldn't separate after they've been combined. If this separates, it's not a big deal. So we can pour this into, I'll go back to the other camera for you. We'll pour this into a little jar. I'm not going to use all of this dressing for this recipe. So you can see when this is in the little glass jar that that's perfectly combined. So we don't need to worry about that emulsifying. If that's something that's been holding you back from making your own dressings, I've just showed you how it's not a very big deal to worry about that. Combining your oil and your vinegar with a small whisk is perfectly easy and does not need to be very hard. What I like to do at this point is take my greens and add a little bit of this salad dressing to the greens and just toss them up. I'm gonna grab a salad spoon here, and we're just gonna toss them with a tiny bit of this dressing so that they get the flavor all over the greens, and you don't have to use very much dressing that way. And then you can serve the dressing on the side of the salad if you wanted to. And so here we have those greens nicely tossed. Can add a little salt and pepper. And you should also taste a little bit of your salad dressing as you're going along. If you decide that you want it a little bit tangier, just add a little bit of more vinegar to it. If you really want to make this easy, you can skip making the vinaigrette entirely and just pour your olive oil and your vinaigrette directly onto your salad greens, salt and pepper them, toss them together. You're gonna, it's still gonna be great. And then once you get your your salad ingredients in, they're gonna pull so much attention away from what's on the salad greens that it becomes very, the salad dressing is gonna be in the background for this recipe once you have everything put together. So once that is all together, then we are waiting for the salmon to cook and to see how the asparagus is going to we're at about 8 minutes, and I feel like I am going to go ahead and check that asparagus, see what it is doing, and we will check on our salmon too. So this is how I like my asparagus. So he's still got a good bit of crunch to him, but he's not too floppy. So that's actually just how I like my asparagus. So I'm going to pull them off, and then we're going to take a fork and we're just going to check our salmon too and see. So the salmon is still really wet in the middle. It's not quite flaky, and I'm looking for it to be, because we're going to flake the salmon when this is all when it's all cooked. So I'm going to throw the salmon in for a couple more minutes, but it's cooking really nicely here. And you could do this recipe with chicken breast, with any other protein. If you wanted to keep it vegetarian, you could do this with chickpeas. Lovely with chickpeas. It's one of my favorite salad proteins. I'm going to reset the timer and give it 3 more minutes. And then while that's going, I was going to talk a little bit about preparing the salad. So I am a big proponent of trying to make up meals like for the next day and have them ready to go, or have easy meals handy. This salad can fall into that category. It's how we're preparing it tonight is really kind of, this is going to be ready to eat right away. But if you wanted to do this salad as prepping it in advance, what you would do is you would cook everything, cook the salmon, cook the asparagus like we're doing, and then you would not toss your salad greens with the salad dressing. You would skip that step, have your salad dressing on the side and keep your salad greens separate. And then once you have your dressing or your salmon ready and your asparagus ready and all your other toppings, I've got some strawberries sliced up. I have a few chives that just got picked out of the garden. Those are like the first herb that's up in the spring. So I felt like that was going to be a good combination with everything else. I've got some pecans here. You could use any nut that you have around that just sounds good to you, or skip the nut entirely. It would be really good with sesame seed or sunflower seeds, shelled sunflower seeds, or pistachios. And then I have a little bit of goat's milk, goat cheese. So I am going to, what I would do if I were preparing this in advance is I would probably build this up in a mason jar, or like a repurposed, you don't need a mason jar. You could repurpose a jar, like a mayonnaise jar, or a smaller jar, depending on how much you wanted, how many servings you wanted to do. And I would start with my heaviest ingredients on the bottom and the wetter ingredients. So I would put the salmon on the bottom, and then I would put in, after it's cooled, I would let everything cool. And then the asparagus I would put on top of that. And we're going to chop the asparagus here in a second. And then I would do my nuts, my herbs, my cheese, and probably keep the strawberries on the very top of everything. And then I would maybe pour the salad dressing on top of those. If I wanted to keep everything in one jar, I would pour the salad dressing on top of all of those, and then top it all with the lettuce that has no salad dressing on it. So that way you have the lettuce completely as dry as possible. And that's going to store that's going to be the best way to prepare this in advance. And then when you're ready to eat it, you toss it all into a bowl together and mix those flavors. If you wanted to carry an extra little container with the salad dressing, then you could just toss that together separately too. So I keep calling the salmon asparagus. So if I look at the salmon here, it's flaking really nicely. Let me show you that on the little camera. I got everything going here. I set this guy aside and we're going to flake this salmon. I bought salmon from Trader Joe's. I usually look for salmon that's wild caught. And I bought 2 packages from the freezer section at Trader Joe's. I probably only needed 1 of the packages, which would have been 2 of these pieces for this recipe. But since I thawed both of them, I needed to cook both of them. You can't put it back in the freezer once it's thawed. So I might freeze some of this extra that doesn't get used, if it doesn't get used for the salad. But what we're gonna do is you just take your fork, and as long as the salmon's cooked through enough, it should flake up really nicely like this. And we'll just we'll collect it in a little bowl. So we're gonna get it all flaked up. And because this is a chopped salad, we're gonna have everything all in small pieces. You want this to be able to cool a bit. You can put it onto your salad warm. So that's perfectly fine. It's just all preference. So if you were doing the chicken breast, instead of flaking it, just slice it really thin. And before you put it onto the salad, you could chop it too. So we'll just get some of this salmon into a little bowl, and then we will get this. I definitely don't need 4 pieces. So I think the recipe, it says 4 6-ounce fillets. These are 8-ounce fillets, closer to that. So this is a lot of salmon. So I may make some of this into something else, or I may just freeze the extra. So if I don't think I'm going to eat it all in time, the salmon itself should be, once it's cooked, eaten within a couple days. But if I cool it and freeze it right away, I can pull it out. Can also use canned salmon in this recipe. So that is another very easy alternative to baking your own. So this is so 2 of those fillets gave me about 2 cups worth, which I think is gonna be plenty for this salad. And then I'm gonna just bring over the asparagus while we're here so you can see it up close. So the asparagus, if I take a fork and stab it, I can get through it easily. It's kept its nice green color. If it cooks much longer, and the other way you can keep this color, if you really want to keep the green, is have a little bit of cold water handy. And I can do that right here because I do want to keep the green. Drop it in some cold water. Ice water is perfectly fine too. And again, I'm just using the same bowl I put the salad dressing in. I don't care. So you can drop it into that cold water and that'll stop all the cooking. So you might lose some of your seasoning on it if you do this. I don't have any ice cubes in my house right now, but in a little bit of cold water, and then just pull. It doesn't take very long to cool off. As soon as it feels cold, then you can pull it out. Probably use a colander, let it drain. I don't have one here right now. And I don't like to add extra, I don't like extra dishes, so maybe under normal circumstances, I probably wouldn't use the colander either. And I'm just gonna cut it into about 1-inch pieces. So if you don't like asparagus, or you don't have good asparagus handy, other spring vegetables would be awesome in this salad. I think spring peas would be really good. So if you get all those little sweet peas, you would not need to cook those at all. Those can go on raw and would be excellent in this recipe. And all we do for the assembly of this is to take your greens. I am just using mixed greens from the grocery store. If you find, I think arugula would be really lovely in this. You could do this with a crispier, like a butter lettuce. Any sort of green that makes you happy or is in your house will work wonderfully in this recipe, so have fun with it. I always have these mixed greens around. It's got nice color and good flavor, and we really like it, so that's what we do. And then you add, I've got the strawberries sliced up, so throw those in. And then throw in your asparagus. I don't think I need all the asparagus for what I have here. I've got the salmon. You get your salmon going there. I want a little bit of nuts in there. I think this is beautiful like this. And then I'm gonna open, I should have opened this ahead of time, but we'll open up this goat cheese and get a little bit of that on there too. So we've got different colors. Sprinkle in the chives. So healthy. Oh, it's going to be very difficult on me. I can find the scissors in my house. There they are. Sorry. So if you have questions about this recipe, you are welcome to reach out to me. I think you have my website information on your recipe, so you can reach out to me via that. That's probably the best way. If the library can help you too with questions, depending on what they are. But I just do this with the goat cheese. That goat cheese had some honey in it, and so it seems to be a little wetter than some. And then I like to toss this up. You can make this into whatever ratios you like. So if you want more or less of something, you do that. If you like wilted greens, then keep your salmon warm when you put it in there. And that'll just let them wilt a little bit more. This has all these springy flavors in it. It's just going to be a really fun salad. You can make this into a main dish. It can be a side dish. Take it for lunch at work, all sorts of things. I hope you have a lot of fun with it. And I want to thank everybody for being here tonight with me. And hopefully I will see you around in the world. Thanks so much. Have a great night. Bye.